in a 125-112 victory over Dame and the Milwaukee Bucks. Denny Avdia, awesome, 30 points and 9 rebounds. He talked about the win after the game.
I just feel so much different since the beginning of the year in terms of like how we play, how we share the ball, how we bond together. It's just a different team right now. So I'm happy.
Trailblazers back in action tomorrow. Orlando is in town. Tip-off from Moda at 7. Chris Burkhart will have Blazers game day at 5 on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. A friendly reminder, all Trailblazer games streaming on the iHeartRadio app. From the NFL, on the Pat McAfee Show, Bill Belichick suggested the Lombardi Trophy should be renamed the Tom Brady Trophy because he won 7 of them. Super Bowl 59, February 9th in New Orleans. Eagles and Chiefs. KC is favored by 1.5, trying to win and become the first team to get 3 straight Super Bowls.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's time for the Rip City Drive, brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Featuring the crazy and often irrational longtime Portland radio vet, Chad Dewing.
Antetokounmpo drives, cut off, blocked by Ayton, out of bounds, and he sends Giannis to bed without any dinner. Right back to Avdia, 8 to shoot. Lillard's on him, goes left, gives it to Sharp. 6 to shoot, crosses, ducks to Kamara. Ball fake, 2 to shoot, gets underneath to the rim and dunks it in! Right in the face of Giannis Antetokounmpo! Avdia sitting on a season-high, tying 28 points. Dribbles right, he attacks, drives, lays it in! A 30 spot for Denny Avdia, the 3rd time in his career he's got 30 or more.
We always talk about like sending a message, being physical, being ready to defend, and I feel like it doesn't just start with me. Like I'm doing it on an offensive end, but like the defensive end is what matters, and we got to be physical, especially on the defensive end, but then it translates to offense.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Dewing starts now.
But my man Travis was on one last night. His call was terrific. And that was a fun night at Moda Center where the Trailblazers, they're now 5-1 in their last 6 games, and they hammered the Bucks 125-112. And it was like a wave of emotion and good basketball. They closed the first half on a 29-14 run, and then they took control of the game at the start of the fourth with a 14-3 run, and they beat the Bucks. And a great performance from multiple Trailblazers, but namely Denny Avdia, who continues to get better, who continues to impress, and just blew my socks off last night. I'm a big fan of Denny. He's my favorite player on the team and one of my favorite players to root for and follow in the NBA because of his work ethic, his attitude, the way he's connected with his teammates in the locker room, and his versatility on the floor. I have been and always will be a fan of guys who can do it on both ends of the floor. I believe in order to be great in basketball, you cannot be a one-dimensional player. I don't have a lot of time for guys who score well but don't defend well. I like guys who can get a big stop but also make a big shot. Denny Avdia is a freak. He's physical. He gets guys off balance and uses his strength to get to his spots and make shots. He's willing to move the basketball, a willing passer. He just does a lot of things well. He's a winning basketball player. I was excited when they got him on draft night because I was a fan of his. But now that he's in Portland and you see him up close on a nightly basis, you realize what kind of a steal that was. And he's only 24, and they've got him on what could be the best bargain based on play in the entire league. His contract is ridiculous. Ridiculous. For the production that he's getting, he's putting up like $30 million a year type production, and they're paying nowhere near that. What a bargain he is, and what a player he is, and what a good dude he is. Great teammate. He just brings everything. And then when you combine him with Toumani Kamara, who's an animal, you have something to cook with right there. So that was a good night, good win, and a lot of good things to celebrate coming out of Moda Center last night. So here's what we're going to do today. I've got a lot of different things I want to get to in regard to the Super Bowl with the Chiefs and the Eagles. I'm looking forward to the game because I believe these are the 2 best teams in the NFL without question. And that's going to make for a very good game. Plus, it's a rematch of a game that we saw a couple of years ago that was a thriller. Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Chris Jones, star power. And you've got Andy Reid, who is the mad scientist with the Chiefs offense, and Steve Spagnuolo, who is just killing it with their defense. What a game. And you have a team trying to do something that's never been done before. 3 straight Super Bowls. I believe that Patrick Mahomes is the best ever today. I don't care about how many rings he's won. I don't care how many rings Brady has won. Look, Michael Jordan doesn't have the most rings in NBA history. He doesn't have as much as Bill Russell, but I know that MJ's a better player. I understand that ring count does matter to a degree, but there's more to it than just that. And Patrick Mahomes, pound for pound, is exactly what you want in a quarterback. And it pains me to say it, but he's awesome. And Andy Reid is terrific, and they have great synergy. And then you have the connection on the coaching staff with Reid and the way he empowers Steve Spagnuolo, who's well-versed on defense, experienced, and knows how to call the game. Much like we saw with the 4th down and 5 call where he sent the corner, and they got Josh Allen rolling to his right, throwing for desperation, and it's an incomplete. Game over. Chiefs move on to another Super Bowl. 7 consecutive AFC title games out of the gate for Patrick Mahomes. And what's crazy about Mahomes, people weren't drooling all over him when he was coming out of college. He played at Texas Tech. He was in that air raid offense. He put up big numbers against bad competition. That was the general theory that was floating around Mahomes. But Andy Reid, who knows a thing or two about quarterbacks and a thing or two about football, recognized that he was going to be a star, and they did whatever it took to get him. And they deserve credit for that. And I understand there are a lot of people out there that don't like the Chiefs, who complain about the officiating, who think that they're lucky. You don't make it to 7 consecutive AFC title games and be on the verge of winning 3 straight Super Bowls because you're lucky. Good teams, great players, they make their own luck through preparation, through practice, through perfecting the art of playing the position. When they get into certain situations on the field, you know they're going to convert. They're going to make the right play. They're going to do the right thing. The coaching, the star power, the execution, the Chiefs are great. Now, Philadelphia, they're a problem. When you have the best roster in football and you're strong at both lines of scrimmage, that puts you in a position to win a championship. I think the Chiefs are going to win, but it's not going to be a runaway. Philadelphia is in a great spot right now to get another championship because they play the game the right way. I love teams, and I always will, that can line up and run the football and push you off the line of scrimmage. I love that football, for all the innovation that's come into the game over the years, is still a matter of men moving other men to get in a good position to do what you want to do at the line of scrimmage. And when you're strong at the point of attack, you have a chance to win. We've seen it time and time again. High-powered offense, great quarterback, going up against a stout team that's strong at the line of scrimmage, gets squashed in the Super Bowl. So the Eagles can absolutely win. But I think the game's going to be close. And I think it's going to come down to one possession. And in those moments, who am I going to choose? Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts? Or Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? It's that simple. You're going to bet against that? If you bet against that, you're crazy. Absolutely insane. You don't have to overthink certain things in sports. Just like with the Chicago Bulls. I'm going to go against Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan? I don't think so. I'm going to go against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? How often do they need to win the championship before you just tip the cap and say, yeah, they're going to win? I think people will project, they'll hope, they'll pray because they don't want a team to win 3 straight Super Bowls. But for me, I like greatness. And the fact that we have a chance to see something happen that's never happened before in the long and illustrious history and tradition of the NFL is pretty special. And Patrick Mahomes, the reason why I love the guy is because he's a black John Elway. He is John Elway 2.0. He's awesome. Arm strength, mobility, understanding of offense and defense, great leader, great charisma. He's everything you want. He's a beautiful quarterback. He's everything. He's great. And he's been great ever since he started for the Kansas City Chiefs. And it drives you crazy. How can a guy be that good? Well, what's up with the adjustment period? How can you sit for 1 year and then come in and just tear up the league like that? It's not fair. No one does it, but he's doing it. So what a great Super Bowl we got, man. Look, this is what you got to do. And just trust me on this, especially for you younger sports fans out there who are just getting your feet wet in becoming a sports fan. You have to learn to sit back and embrace great players, great teams, great moments, and enjoy them for what they are. And I've been fortunate, like a lot of you, to have seen great players. I saw Barry Sanders in college with Oklahoma State in 1988. Greatest season in the history of college football. I saw it. He was awesome. Best college football player I've ever seen. I saw Wayne Gretzky tear up the NHL at the height of his career. Greatest hockey player in the history of the game. I saw Michael Jordan win all 6 of his championships and dominate. Greatest NBA player ever. And I've seen the best of the best in the NFL. I saw Joe Montana win 4 Super Bowls and go 4-0 in the big game. I saw John Elway do things I had never seen a quarterback do before. I've seen Peyton Manning, I've seen Tom Brady, and now I'm getting a chance to see Patrick Mahomes. I went through the entire 4 years of Christian Laettner at Duke, best college basketball player I've ever seen. I've seen the best of the best throughout the course of my lifetime, and I love it. I'm thankful. And that's what we're getting right now with the Chiefs, on the verge of doing something that's never been done before. And keep in mind, Patrick Mahomes is chasing down one dude, and that guy's name is Tom Brady, who Bill Belichick said they should name the trophy after now. He's won 7 of them. I hate that stuff so much. The Vince Lombardi trophy should never be changed to the Tom Brady trophy. It just makes you want to go into the bathroom and vomit when you hear stuff like that. I respect Tom Brady, but he drives me crazy. I have to listen to him go through this rough patch as a broadcaster, too. It's too much Tom. I was on Tom's side when he went through the divorce with the Victoria's Secret model because I knew that she was lying and being weird, but I'm not on this. No, we're not renaming the trophy. Vince Lombardi was a legend. It's the Lombardi trophy, and if we ever have to say it's the Brady trophy, I'll vomit. There are certain things in life that make me gag, like eggs that are runny. It's like, it just makes you want to vomit in your mouth. Knowing that they would even consider renaming the Lombardi, which is a beautiful name, by the way, to the Tom Brady trophy, that's where I win the Super Bowl and say, no, thanks, I don't want the trophy. I'm not hoisting the Tom Brady trophy over my head. It's not happening. Not doing it. I don't need that. I respect Tom. He's great. He's great. He won 7 Super Bowls. No one's ever done that. We're not renaming the trophy after his name, for crying out loud. Enough is enough, okay? And we're not doing it. Just keep it Lombardi, and it's all good. The Larry O'Brien, the Lombardi, the Stanley Cup, it's etched in stone. Just keep it that way. And what's Bill Belichick doing saying that anyways? Don't he and Tom hate each other? Anyways, that's where I'm at. I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl. I do want to get to the Trailblazers, and we'll dive in. A lot of good things. I had a chance to catch up with Joe Cronin last night. Had a chance to watch the game. We're seeing a lot of good things right now. All right, you want to hit me up on social media? I'm here at Chad and Rip City. You can call the show at 503-248-0620. And I've got some advice for Skeletor, the NBA commissioner, Adam Silver. He was on with Dan Patrick today, and he discussed some changes to the game that they're considering, or at least have been discussed. And I've got the simple plan. Don't overthink things and dramatically change the game. I've got a simple plan. It's like a 3-point plan. And I guarantee you it will bring more people in, and more people will watch on TV, and more people will go to watch games. Don't overthink it. It's right in front of your face, Commissioner. All right, 503-248-0620. It's a Wednesday and a beautiful day. Sunshine, blue skies. It's all good. Chad doing Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, I'm looking at this stat right now. The Chiefs, 9 straight playoff wins dating back to the 2022 postseason. First team to make 5 Super Bowls in a 6-season span. And they're on the verge of winning 3 consecutive Super Bowls. And, of course, the haters are chiming in. My man Sean says, hey, Chad, sell the Chiefs to somebody else. I'm not buying it. They barely won a bunch of teams this year. They didn't crush teams all year like Joe Montana and the Niners. Never trust your crazy brother, Chad. What is there not to trust? 9 straight playoff wins dating back to 22, and the first team to make 5 Super Bowls in a 6-game span, and they're on the verge of doing something that's never been done before. You don't have to listen to a word I say. Just look at the numbers. They're on the verge of going down as arguably the best team of all time. And they're definitely a dynasty, and they've got the best quarterback of all time. And they've got a coach who's trying to become the best coach of all time. And he might be there right now. I don't have to sell the Chiefs. They just keep winning. Even when you don't want them to, they just continue to win. And they do so because they're great in big-time situations. Their situational football is top-notch, and they win like good teams do in a variety of different ways. And we've seen it this year. With defense, check. With their offense, check. Situational football, check. Special teams, check. They make all the big plays. You can hate on them all you want, but they're on the verge of winning 3 straight. Very impressive. Now, the Trailblazers last night, 125-112 victors over the Milwaukee Bucks. And I'll go to the phones here in just a moment. Denny Avdia had 30 points and 9 rebounds, 25 points and 7 assists for Anthony Simons, and a double-double, very effective night for DeAndre Ayton. But the Trailblazers right now, 5-1 in their last 6. They're continuing the 7-game homestand tomorrow. But what I'm most excited about is the youth and the way that we're seeing the young players develop. Say what you want about Chauncey Billups. I know there are many of you who don't like Chauncey, probably because he was hired by Neil Olshey, and the fact that the team has suffered through multiple losing seasons in a row. But if you want to focus on the positive for just a moment, look at the 5 young players who are developing. First off, you've got Denny Avdia, young, 24, and balling out on a great contract, and Tamani Kamara. Now, Tamani Kamara is a budding superstar. He can defend. He's got great length. His offensive game is developing, and he is tenacious nonstop throughout the entire game with his defense. That's why I love the comments after that game against Oklahoma City on Sunday. Scored a career-high 24 points, and when asked about it after the game, he didn't care about his offense. He was upset because his one-on-one defense wasn't up to his standard. That's the mentality that you want on your basketball team. For Denny Avdia, he's just in a position to flourish now. And Coach Billups has put him in a position to have more responsibility. He continues to encourage him. His teammates trust him, and he plays his ass off. He and Kamara, there are a lot of players in the NBA that if they just observed Denny Avdia and Tamani Kamara and played as hard as those 2 guys do, think about how much better they would be. And we can all think of a player or 2 in the league right now who don't love basketball as much as Denny and Tamani, who don't play as hard as those 2 do. And if they did, they would be superstars. So I really respect the way they play. And Denny Avdia, just a terrific player, versatile, but a good human being as well. He talked about the win last night.
I'll start with the team. I think we came to play today. We were aggressive. At the beginning, I think we were starting a little slow, but we were just sharing the ball today. I feel like everybody that came in was aggressive. And as I said after the last game, I just feel so much different since the beginning of the year in terms of like how we play, how we share the ball, how we bond together. It's just a different team right now. So I'm happy.
And as far as your performance?
As far as my performance, I'm just aggressive, trying to make plays, energy, motor. They try to play physical with me in the beginning, but it just made me smile, to be honest with you. But other than that, I'm not overthinking. I'm just one game at a time, and I'm happy we got the win.
He's awesome. He's playing great basketball right now. So you've got Denny Avdia and Tamani Kamara. They're the 2 MVPs of the team so far this year. I don't care which one you pick, but it's one of those 2. Elsewhere, Donovan Clingan at center. He was terrific last night with his shot blocking, his defense, and his rebounding. And in the limited minutes he's played so far this year, it's pretty obvious the Blazers stole one in the first round in the draft. Love his attitude, love his background and where he comes from, his willingness to work, his smarts on defense. Donovan Clingan is going to continue to develop and become a fine player. I like what he brings to the team, and I think most of you do as well. And then you got your backcourt. Scoot Henderson is playing much better basketball now. He's turning a corner. We've seen it over the last few weeks, and really his last 7, 8 to 9 games, he's been great. He really has. And his defense has really been noticeable. And physically, he's a young man who's built like an Adonis. I wish I had his physique. And then Shaedon Sharpe. Shaedon Sharpe is not where he needs to be. He has shown flashes of brilliance. And I like that Coach Billups benched him for his poor defense to send the message that, hey, we believe you can be great, but it's going to require more work from you on the defensive end to get to that point. That's what it's all about. All right, back to the Blazers in a moment. Let's go out to the phones. Chad doing Rip City Drive. Telephone number here is 503-248-0620 if you want to jump on board. You can fire away with your phone calls right now. Let's start with Ray. Ray, you're first up on the Rip City Drive. I appreciate the phone call. Fire away.
All right. What's up? Hey, you sound pretty big on Eagles Chiefs, and I am too, Chiefs especially. How far away are the other NFL teams? And I'm good.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's the thing. At least I'll speak as a Bronco fan. The Broncos have improved. Year one with Bo Nix at quarterback and Sean Payton and the connection there. But what was really striking to me is that when the Broncos got blown out by the Bills in the wild card round, it gives you a chance to look at your team compared to the best, and you realize how far away you are. Well, we got to get better on the defensive line. We needed another guy in the secondary. We need to have a legitimate running back. We need another playmaker on the outside. You start to see all these holes in your team because you realize that to get to that level, you've got a long way to go. And I think you see that with Kansas City and the way that they execute and play and what it takes to get past Patrick Mahomes. Think about the Bills. They got the ball back with a chance to win the game. Over 3 minutes on the clock, 3 timeouts, and the 2-minute warning. And what did Josh Allen do? 6 plays, 17 yards, game over. He wilted in a situation where he needed a legendary moment. The Philadelphia Eagles, they just got the best roster. Talent coming out of their ears. And we saw that with the way they dominated that game on Sunday against the Commanders, who are a young and up-and-coming team. But, again, their defense needs vast improvement. Jaden Daniels is going to be a super stud. He might be a top 4 quarterback in the NFL right now, but they're a long ways away. And yet there they were, measuring themselves against a great team. And what did the Eagles do? Well, the Commanders scored to make it a 2-point game at 14-12. They promptly failed the 2-point conversion. Then the Eagles got the ball back. 3rd down and 13, a PI, which extended their drive. They get a touchdown. The Commanders fumble the kickoff. The Eagles then have a 3rd down that got extended because of a late hit out of bounds. They score the touchdown. Game over. They're up 15 late in the first half, and you knew at that point the Commanders had no chance. You're done. And that's what good teams do. They make you pay for your mistakes. All right, let's go out to Victor in Turkey. Victor, I appreciate the call. You're up. What are your thoughts on the Trailblazers coming off of last night's win over the Bucks?
Man, I'm so excited. Thanks for the opportunity. You won't believe it how excited I am, after a long time, back to your point about this improvement in all these players you mentioned. The last 4 the road trip wins, that the 4 games that they won, that goes back to about 2-3 years ago. They had the last 4 straight games winning on the road. That makes a statement. I don't think that was an accident, as you mentioned. I think the confidence and the improvement, it shows that it wasn't just accident, and also because they played the medium level, not the very high level teams on the road. But I tell you something, you won't believe it. I believe they could beat the Oklahoma City. I really believe it. I know you are from Oklahoma. I don't wanna downgrade the city of Oklahoma, but I think the reason I said that they could beat Oklahoma is because Oklahoma they missed the best two players. I mean the one of the top two players, Dort and Holmgren. Dort and Holmgren they were absent, and the Blazers could take advantage of it, but unfortunately they didn't do it. And I don't want to go to details, but I think the reason I'm saying that, Chad, because I think is the young team of the Blazers, they are working on the improvement. That's why mentally they had a breakdown. They came to about the two-position game late in the fourth quarter. They came in like a 6-point difference to Oklahoma City, but they were afraid even to get close to Shai Alexander. I watched the game. They didn't want to make a hard fall on him. They didn't make a soft. All
right, Victor, you weren't lying. You're excited right now. I've never heard you like this before, Victor. All right, let me respond to that. What you're seeing now, look, I understand the road trip. They weren't playing the best teams in the NBA, but I don't expect perfection from a young group like the Trailblazers. What I'm looking for game to game is improvement with their young players. And we're seeing that right now with Scoot, Shaden, Donovan Clingan, and then, of course, Tamani Kamara and Denny Avdia. And the way that those five guys are playing, let me put it to you like this. All right, so the last few years have been frustrating, right? The Trailblazers have had to tank. They've tried to improve their lottery position, and they've gone after some high-level draft picks. Well, I think fans get frustrated, especially a fan base that's used to making the postseason every year. And you had to say goodbye to a superstar in Dame. So there's a lot of frustration with the fan base. And then with the losing, I think apathy sets in to a degree. But a couple of years ago, I started to really grasp and understand what they were trying to accomplish. And so now we've got to take a look at where they're at. So let me ask you a question. If you were Joe Cronin and you're looking at the five young players on the roster that you have acquired in Scoot, a number 3 overall pick, Shaden, who they're able to grab at number 7, first-round pick in Donovan Clingan, draft day trade for Denny Avdia, another young player, and then Tamani Kamara, who was an absolute steal in the Dame trade. The Suns did not want to let him go. And there are a lot of teams right now that would love to have Tamani Kamara on their roster. In fact, every team in the NBA would love to have Tamani Kamara. So if you're Joe Cronin and you're looking at your 5 young players and you know that those are building blocks, a part of the foundation moving into the future, in combination with your draft pick coming up in the summertime, wouldn't you feel good about that? Seriously. So I'm looking at the team as is right now, and I see those 5 players. I see the development. I see the progress, and then I understand they're going to have a high-level pick coming up in this year's draft, which is loaded with talent. We don't know if they're going to get Cooper Flagg or not, but they could. What if you had Cooper Flagg to those 5 guys right now? So the Blazers are in a very good position right now. I'm very excited about their position. I'm very excited about the young players, and that development was critical. And we've talked about it from day one of this year up until now. Player development is the number one priority. So going back to Chauncey and his staff, say what you want about Chauncey and his staff, but they have done a terrific job of developing the young players. And you get that from Denny Avdia, Tamani Kamara, Shaden Sharp, Scoot Henderson, and Donovan Clingan. 5 good young pieces, which is terrific. And that's what you want. Speaking of Denny Avdia, he was asked about his increased responsibility after the game last night that Chauncey Billups has bestowed upon him. Here's what Denny had to say.
With responsibility, it's sometimes it's tough. I had games that I had 10 turnovers, or I couldn't really handle the ball that well, and I wasn't really used to doing it in Washington. And now having the opportunity is responsibility. And sometimes I didn't do a good job, but I'm learning, and I feel like I had a great coaching staff that really pushed me and gave me confidence to do those things. And I'm learning and I'm working hard, and I feel like I'm solving it and I'm figuring it out. So I'm happy.
I don't know what impresses me more about Denny, his game, his versatility, or how smoothly he can transition from English to Hebrew throughout the course of a press conference. All right, so yeah, I like where they're at. I really do. I think Joe Cronin has done a good job of piecing together young players. I would say I've been talking with Sean Hyken about this, and there are others that believe this. I think what they probably lack is maybe the alpha. Maybe they don't have the alpha. Maybe that's what they need is, if you get Cooper Flag, you get your alpha, and then you've got these great pieces to, kind of position around him. But it would be nice to get the alpha because I don't know if they have that on the roster. I was hoping it was Shaden. I think it was Shaden Sharp. He shows flashes of brilliance, but he's still too passive. I think that's common for young players who are still trying to find their way in the NBA, who are on a team with established veterans, but he's going to have to learn to be more aggressive, to be more selfish. It's hard to say that sometimes in sports, but there are guys who need to learn to be a little more selfish. Like, I'm going to take that shot because I'm the most equipped on the team to get to that spot and get that shot up. And Shaden's got to get that in his mentality because of his athleticism and his playmaking ability, his range, all the different things he can do, his playmaking and work off the bounce. He's got great size. He needs to be a little more selfish and don't hesitate to be aggressive and attack. But it's hard for young players to do that. And I used this example yesterday, and I'll use it again. He reminds me of Eldon Campbell. He used to play for the Lakers, and they were excited about him because he had superstar talent. And he would have flashes where he'd have 2 or 3 or 4 games or a couple of weeks of dominant play. And then he would kind of disappear for a stretch of time. I think he was too passive. And I see the same thing from Shaden. But he's young. But it's going to take more encouragement. Like, Shaden, damn it, Shaden, be aggressive. Be more selfish. Attack. You can do this. If you're in a position to take it over, take it over. Coach Billups has told him that before. And I like that. Now, the reason why I don't worry so much about Scoot Henderson, especially with the recent stretch that we've seen, because his work ethic is solid. If you've been to the arena early, I mean, he puts in a lot of time on his game. He spends a lot of time at the practice facility. And you talk to anyone within the organization, Scoot Henderson works his ass off. Putting in the time, working on his game. And what we're seeing now, and keep in mind, he's only 20, 21 soon. He's still young. But we're seeing him start to take that next step. So young players, young pieces. The Blazers have 5 of them, and they're all developing nicely. That is something you can be excited about. You can be excited about that. It's a good thing. And then you add in another piece from the draft. Obviously, I want Cooper Flag. Everyone I've talked to, the draft this year, it's Cooper Flag, and then there's separation between he and the next guy. Now, there are other good players, and a lot of times with the draft, you don't know which is going to be which, but Cooper Flag is the star. He's a stud. He's going to be awesome, and whoever gets him is going to be thrilled. It would transform the Trailblazers franchise overnight if they could land Coop. And that's what I'm hoping for, because that would be fun. But aside from that, the 5 pieces they got, great building blocks as you continue to move forward. And Denny Avdia and Tamani Kamara, I can assure you, every team in the NBA would love to get their hands on those guys. And yet the Blazers got them at a very good price. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. You can reach out to me, 503-248-0620. You'll find me on social at Chad and Rip City. Workout day, so I'm starting to fade into my post-workout fog. So I'm going to use copious amounts of caffeine to continue to drive myself through this. Michael Holton on Hoops, he'll join me coming up at 5:20. All right, 503-248-0620. I'll get to Commissioner Silver. He's got some ideas of things that have been discussed to improve the game. Well, I've got my 3-point plan. A lot of these commissioners, they get a lot of smart people. They overthink things, and I'm here to help. All right, Rip City Drive, Chad doing here in your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Yeah, it's a great song. Love Tears for Fears. I love how songs take you back to a time and place. So when this first hit and Tears for Fears was taking over the world, or at least the 1980s, it reminds me of living out in Colorado. Now, we lived there as a family for 3 years. I grew up in Oklahoma, just outside of Tulsa, in a town called Manford. And I think at the last census, I want to say it was like 2,000 people. That's how small it was. Great place to grow up. Don't you hate how when you get older, you start to look back and you realize, like, I'm such a moron. I should have respected and appreciated the things I had as a youngster more. I grew up in the country. The first house I remember was in a neighborhood called Salt Creek, a little cul-de-sac. And it was a great place to live because really safe. It was right next to the lake. And so I could walk down and go fishing. We had different fishing holes. I could go swimming. We'd go out there and go skiing. My best friend David, who lived next door, David Ramsey, his dad Jim had a boat. And so often we'd go out in the boat, Lake Keystone. And it was great. Not a care in the world. And then after being in that house for a few years, my mom had this country house dream. And so my parents bought some land, like 10 acres. And my dad built a house with his bare hands. And I had some help and had some guys that would come over. But I remember going to look at the land after the foundation had been laid. And then the house was built and we got to pick out our rooms and the whole deal. That's where I had Charlie, my horse. But we had a nice garden, some chickens. I had my horse, Charlie. We had our golden retriever, Nikki, and my cat, Tiger. Tiger was great. Found him when I was probably about 7 years old. I was outside playing. This is when I was still in the cul-de-sac, and I heard this. You know, sometimes cats, they have the weird meow where it's not like a meow, but it's more like a long and drawn out, almost like a whine, like a cat call. It's like, it's like, you know that something's not right. Well, I walked over to David's yard, and then I realized it was coming from the truck, and his dad had this old Dodge blue pickup, and it was a piece of junk, but he would use it on the dirt trails and to get down to the fishing holes. And so I got down underneath the truck and looked up, and you know how cats' eyes, you know when you're looking up in a dark place and sometimes cats' eyes, they light up? Well, I saw Tiger's eyes, this little meow meow, and he was an orange kitten, and beautiful. And I pulled him out of there, and then he instantly clung to me. And back then, in the summertime in Oklahoma, I didn't exactly wear a lot of clothes. Let's just put it that way. I was basically underwear or shorts and then no shirt because it was so hot with the humidity and stuff. And the great thing about being young is you can run around half naked and it's perfectly cool, especially in Oklahoma. No one cares about anything there. Anything goes. So I pulled him out and he clung to my body, and instantly I took him in the house and I put him down on the floor and the carpet, and he went berserko because he was a stray and he was little, but he like went behind the couch. He wouldn't let anyone touch him. And I was young and I wanted to keep him. And my dad, he was sneaky mean back then because he tried to tell me some load of bull crap because I took Tiger out in the garage and I closed the garage door. So I had him in the garage and he was hiding behind one of my dad's work desks, and we had the freezer out there, the whole deal. And my dad's like, the reason why he won't come to you is because he wants to go back home with his family. So the best thing to do if you really love him is to open up the garage door and then let him run off. And then he'll be happy, and then you'll feel good knowing that you helped him get back with his family. What that was code for was, I hate cats, I don't want a cat, and I'm going to do whatever I can to convince you to let him go. So, of course, I opened up the garage door, and I was crying, and Tiger ran off into the woods. We had these big woods that were close to the lake behind the house. Those are the same woods that I tried to burn down at the age of 5 because me and my buddy Dayton were throwing matches. Not a good idea. So I did. I'll never forget the chief of police named Orland White because we set the woods on fire. Luckily, no houses got caught on fire, but we burned down a large section of woods. So my dad told Orland, I found this out after the fact. He's like, yeah. And he was in full uniform. And this is back, you know, like the shiny shoes and the beautiful pants with the crease and the shirt with the patches on it and the utility belt like Batman with the gun and everything. And he was a tall man, very intimidating. And I'm like 5. And he came over and he got down on his knees. And he was like, he had a big finger. like a coach. You know, a coach with like a big finger when they're pointing at you. He was pointing his big fat finger in my face. He's like, "If you ever do this again, I'm going to haul you. You see that car right over there? I'm going to put you in the back and haul you into jail." And I was like, "All right, sir, no problem." So I never set the woods on fire again. So, anyways, Tiger ran off into those woods, and I thought he was gone forever. And then I think it was one night later, I'm sitting there by the sliding glass door in the living room watching TV. And I'm trying to think what I was probably watching, like Dukes of Hazzard and Incredible Hulk back then. And Tiger comes up to the sliding glass door, and I was eating some Eckrich sausage at the time. And so I broke off some pieces and I gave it to him. And then he came in and we became best friends. The cool thing about him is that he survived the move from Oklahoma to Colorado and then from Colorado to Washington. And he was with me all the way up until I was 24. So I had him for 17 years. That was a good cat. A stray turned into my best friend, and he was with me forever. It was great. So I love that. Now, that brings me back to Tears for Fears. So in Colorado, we lived up on a mountain, not about 25 miles outside of Denver, a town called Conifer, and they have a mountain called Conifer Mountain. And our house actually was at like 9,800 feet above sea level. And I've gone up there, recently to just check out the house and see what it looks like now. And the oxygen debt, because of the altitude, you can feel it. Well, when we were younger, we would go up to this thing called Eagle's Nest, which was the very peak of, you'd have to climb up these rocks and get to the top of the mountain. It was right at the peak of Conifer Mountain, and that's where the kids would hang out. So we'd have the boom box, we'd have the Tears for Fears going, we'd have a little fire going, and that's where we'd hang out. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, after you heard about Tiger, that song reminds me of that moment in time. And I love how music can do that. But yeah, those were the times. I wish I would have respected it more. Because when I lived out there on the 10 acres, like I had the horse, I could go ride Charlie. But we had the pond that was situated below the house. So you just walk through the woods, you get down to the pond. It's one of the most beautiful places ever. And I've decided that's where, when I die, I would like to be cremated to have my ashes put into that pond. It's like it was my little semi-private happy place. During the summertime, you'd fish there for bass and crappie or bullfrogs, and my mom would make frog legs. And then during the wintertime, it would freeze over, and we could sled on it and stuff. It was a great place. And I went back there, and there's been a lot of growth, a lot of green, and it's even more beautiful today than it was when I was younger. So I miss those times. And then the only thing we had to watch out for, like when you're on the shores of the pond fishing, and my dad would be like, "Look, have fun, but just watch your back." And what would happen is you'd be right down there on the right by the edge of the water. The water moccasins and the cottonmouths, they would roll up behind you because they're trying to get in the pond. And so you had to watch from behind to make sure you weren't going to get bit. And I never saw any rattlesnakes out there, but we saw cottonmouths, water moccasins, and copperheads all over the place.
Whew.
So my dad was just like, "Hey, you got to be careful. You flip over rocks and go looking for stuff. You got to be careful. So watch where you put your hands and where you step." And so that's what we did. I never got bit. We did catch a few snakes. I don't like snakes, to be honest with you. But the frog legs are good. They do taste like chicken, but
You can confirm?
they're good, man. Frog legs are delicious. I've had alligator bites, too, at Montage. I don't know if Montage is still open, but that was a great restaurant in town because it was good food late at night, but they would have gator bites, too. But there's still a few places around town where you get some frog legs. All right, 503-248-0620. That's your telephone number. We'll come back, and I've got some advice for Adam Silver, who's overthinking things. He's a smart guy. He's got good people around him, but, man, it's like you're overthinking it, commish. So I'm here to help you. You got the Rip City Drive.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, 4 o'clock.
The home of the
As I was saying, Trailblazers with their best performance of the year last night in a 125-112 victory over Dame and the Milwaukee Bucks. Denny Avdia, awesome. 30 points, 9 boards. He talked about the game after the victory.
I'll start with the team. I think we came to play today. We were aggressive. At the beginning, I think we were starting a little slow, but we were just sharing the ball today. I feel like everybody that came in was aggressive. And
Trailblazers back in action tomorrow night. Orlando's in town. Tip at 7. Chris Burkhardt will have Blazers game day at 5. Here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All Blazer games streaming on the iHeartRadio app. From the NFL, Bill Belichick suggested on the Pat McAfee show that the Lombardi Trophy should be renamed to the Tom Brady Trophy because he's won 7 of them. Super Bowl 59, February 9th in New Orleans. Eagles and Chiefs right now. KC a 1.5-point favorite, trying to make it 3 Super Bowls in a row.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio.
In the world of movie soundtracks, this one is right up there near the top. Big fan of Kenny Loggins. All right, Chad doing here. Michael Holton is going to join me at 5:20 for some Holton on Hoops. Really looking forward to getting his take on what he saw last night. He's a big fan of Denny Avdia as well, and he was balling out of his freaking mind last night. 30 points and 9 rebounds. He really is a competent young player, and the Blazers have him on a cheap contract. I mean, they're getting over on this one. Best value in the NBA is Denny Avdia, and he's playing great. Love him. Good attitude, good approach. That was a lot of fun last night. Blazers now 5-1 in their last 6 ball games. Playing good basketball, and we're seeing, most importantly, what are we seeing? Oh, yeah, growth from the 5 youngsters that are going to be a part of this future moving forward. I did talk with Sean Highkin yesterday, and I asked Joe Cronin this yesterday before the game, how challenging is it for not just yourself, but the rest of the executives around the NBA when it comes to the new CBA and the second apron when you're trying to make deals before the deadline this year? And Cronin said that there's a lot of concern as people try and get a handle on the new CBA, the second apron, and the impacts it's going to have. So I don't anticipate a lot of big-time movement before the deadline this year. And for the Trailblazers, as I've been told, that if someone is to get moved by the deadline this year, Jeremy Grant's probably the most likely, but more than likely the majority of maneuvers with the veteran players that they're looking to move out, that's going to happen during the summertime. So we'll see how things shake out, but the deadline's like 8 days away? And then after that, we get closer to All-Star Weekend. I think regardless of what movement happens at the deadline, that we'll see the Blazers really make a push towards lottery position and play a lot of their younger players. That's kind of what I anticipate. And then we'll see where things shake out at the end and what type of percentage chance they have at the number 1 pick. But that's kind of how I see things going. But right now we're getting a chance to see these guys compete and play, and most importantly, the young players develop at a very good rate, which is nice. Big fan. Big fan. Now, I do want to talk some NBA here. Adam Silver was on Fox Sports Radio with Dan Patrick. And the question that was posed to him is, what is being discussed? Not changes that have been made to the game, but what are some ideas to improve the game that have been at least discussed or thrown out there or put on the table as things they might consider? Now, the NBA has concerns because their ratings continue to decline. And there's obviously more than just one reason for that. But we're seeing a decline in the ratings, and, the NBA, I think, is worried about that, even though they just signed a new massive TV deal for many billions of dollars. But, their partners are going to have concern if they continue to see a decline. So they're looking at different ways they can improve the game. We saw this with Major League Baseball. They wanted to speed the game up a little bit, so they added the pitch clock. They found a way to shorten extra inning games, and the result's been good. The pitch clock is nice. The pacing at Major League Baseball games now is terrific. And I like going to at least one or two full series every summer. I enjoy baseball a great deal. I love being at the ballpark. It's made it better. So the NBA is considering different ways they can improve the game with some of the issues that they have. And here is Commissioner Silver to the question of what are some things that have been thrown out there, discussed as potential changes to improve the game?
I mean, one that's only been discussed a little, I wouldn't put it necessarily in the category of being so wild, is potentially 2 free throws for a foul and a three-point shot. I don't necessarily think I would do it in the last 2 minutes of the game, but I think that's something interesting. Something else that I'm a fan of, and I'm probably in a minority, as we get more involved in global basketball, the NBA is the only league that plays 48 minutes. And I am a fan of 4 10-minute quarters. I'm not sure that many others are. I mean, putting aside what it means for records and things like that, I think that a 2-hour format for a game is more consistent with sort of modern television habits. I don't think people in arenas aren't asking us to shorten the game, but I think as a television program, being 2 hours, that's Olympic basketball, is 2 hours, college basketball, of course, is.
Yeah, but if you like it, I'd say it has kind of a little bit of a push there.
Yeah, but it's such a dramatic change to the game. I mean, I think something like that would have to be talked more about over time. I mean, incidentally.
But the pitch clock was dramatic, Commissioner.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I'm a fan of what baseball did. I'm a baseball fan, and I think some of those changes have really increased sort of the engagement, the entertainment value of the game. And so I'm paying a lot of attention to that. And in fact, I've used the pitch clock, the sort of the increasing the size of the base, et cetera, in meetings at the NBA to say, if baseball, which is more locked into tradition, and I don't mean that negatively, than any other sport. And part of what baseball provides is the tradition, the legacy, that if they're able to make those changes, certainly we shouldn't be afraid to look at changes as well. So, I also think, though, we have made a series of changes over the years. They haven't been as dramatic in many cases. We've changed the format in the last 2 minutes of the game so we wouldn't have as many stoppages. We have a coach's challenge now. We had the hack-a-shack issue. We changed the rule there. I mean, there's this. We added the cup, which we now have. We have a play-in tournament. I mean, so we've made significant changes.
All right, there's Commissioner Silver on Fox Sports Radio. So I really think that Commissioner and his team is overthinking this when trying to consider different ways they can improve the game. Now, I've been a basketball fan for almost my entire life. And for the majority of that, the NBA was always number one. Like, if I had to choose any sport, I'm going NBA. It didn't take me long to figure out when I was watching Larry Bird and Magic Johnson compete in the NBA Finals that I don't know what's going on right now, but I need a lot more of this in my life. Loved it. When I lived in Denver, going to Nuggets games was great because you could roll right up on the box office at McNichols and get tickets at a very reasonable price and go in and watch Alex English and Dan Issel and Michael Adams and Fat Lever. And I fell in love with the game. And so I've had a chance to watch many different versions of the league over the course of time. So I think they're looking at the wrong things. One, they don't need to get rid of the three-point shot. Getting rid of it is crazy. They don't need to shorten the game. I hate the idea of shortening the quarters from 12 to 10 minutes. You don't need to shorten the game. Here's what they need to do to get this game back on track so that people will tune in and want to watch. And the game's not too long right now. An NBA game is a very reasonable period of time. You're going to get a full game in less than 3 hours. And if it's a good game and the competition is solid, people are going to watch. And they're going to go to the arena. And they're going to want to be a part of it. So I've got 4 points. It's very simple. First off, the biggest issue, or one of the biggest issues, is load management. They have got to come up with some type of formula or system to get the star players to play in the games. When you have a variety of different stars taking multiple nights off during the course of the regular season, they're communicating, even though they may not be trying to communicate this to the rest of the fans, that we don't care, so why should you care? It's ridiculous. I grew up in a day and age where the star players played every night. unless there was a serious injury they were dealing with. Michael Jordan played almost every game. Karl Malone played almost every game, as did Magic and Larry and the rest of the crew. Star power is everything. If you have the stars in action on a regular basis, people will tune in to watch them play. And the league's got a lot of stars right now. I love watching Kevin Durant. LeBron James will pull in a lot of eyeballs. So will Luka. So will Wemby. So will Dame and Giannis. There's stars all across the league. And a lot of teams that play an exciting brand of basketball. But when your stars don't compete and they're sitting out night after night after night and they're making hundreds of millions of dollars, there's a disconnect there because the fans are never going to understand that. You're taking the night off? Aren't you a professional athlete? Isn't your job to be in the greatest condition in the history of your life, making that type of money playing a sport, getting a king's ransom to play a kid's game, and you're going to take nights off? Are you kidding me? Now, if a guy's dealing with a chronic issue or some type of major injury, that's different. But a lot of guys just take rest nights now, and fans don't like that. I don't like it because it tells me that you really don't care too much about the competition, that you like the NBA lifestyle, but when it comes to competing and working your tail off, that it's not really the top of your priority list. That's what I think. So you've got to solve the load management issue and get the star players to play on a nightly basis. That's number one. Because a basketball game without stars or a football game without great quarterbacks is not a very good game, and I can find something else to consume my time with. With the three-point shot, look, I agree with Commissioner. The game changes and goes through these different stretches where you have a different style of game. The 80s was one thing, the early 90s was another, and now we're seeing this three-point shot where the analytics are having an impact on the game. I would get rid of the corner three. Get rid of the corner three, which is the hardest in the league to defend because offenses will try to spread out the defenses, and it's hard to get over to cover that corner. Get rid of the corner three. And then bring back in the hand check to allow more physicality on defense, to give the defenses a chance. So load management, number one, getting your star players to play on a nightly basis. Get rid of the corner three and bring back the hand check to give the defenses a chance to have more competition. And I think with that, you can encourage teams to try and score in different ways. It's critical. You've got to do it. Get the star players to play, get rid of the corner threes, bring back the hand check, and then last but not least, stay away from the politics. The NBA can't help themselves. They have to get involved in all these different political type movements. Just leave it alone. The majority of people I know want to tune in and watch a game. They don't want to be preached at. Just stay away from the politics. All right? We don't need to know what the NBA thinks about every political issue. It drives me crazy. And I'm sure it drives a lot of fans crazy. Just leave it alone. You don't have to get caught up in all the different woke causes. Your job is to provide a product that appeals to as many people as possible. So there you have it. That's your 4-point little plan there. Load management, you got to get your star players to play. Get rid of the corner three, bring back the hand check, and stay away from the politics. All right, we'll keep things rolling here. I've got some football coming up next. Some thoughts on Pete Carroll, on Tom Brady, and, of course, the Eagles and Chiefs. And then Michael Holton will stop by at 5:20 for some Holton on Hoops here on the Rip City Drive. Speaking of movie soundtracks, Saturday Night Fever is unbelievable. And I love the Bee Gees. I've got the list right here. Now, if you had to guess the number one soundtrack of all time, what do you think it is? And it annoys me because the soundtrack involves an artist that I love, but the song from the movie drives me crazy. Bodyguard is number one. And, of course, that's Whitney Houston.
Okay.
I didn't like that movie either. Saturday Night Fever, number 2. Dirty Dancing, 3. Titanic. Grease. The Sound of Music. That made my mom and dad happy. Purple Rain's on there. Flashdance, Bombay, and The Lion King. So there's your list of the top soundtracks of all time. But Bodyguard is number 1. They've got 50 million in sales. I think Saturday Night Fever is around 40 mil. I think Saturday Night Fever with the Bee Gees, they were, I can't remember the exact stat. They share something with the Beatles. They're one of only 2 bands along with the Beatles to have, I think, 5 songs in the top 10 of the Billboard charts at the same time. And for the Bee Gees, that was because of Saturday Night Fever. All right, just got a email from Tim Robinson chiming in on the NBA issues that Commissioner Silver was talking about. He emailed the station through the website. Hey, Tim, there's a lot of steps to have to email me through the station website. So next time, just fire me a text. Just write this number down, 360-281-5473. And now you've got direct access to Chad. All right? So just do it that way and make it a lot easier on yourself moving into the future. Chad, I have a suggestion for speeding up NBA games. Change the free throw rule. First free throw counts as 2 points. If they make it, they don't get a second free throw. If they miss, they take the second, and it's worth 1 point. League average is around 70%, so there should be, in concept, be less time shooting these free throws. No one enjoys free throws. Really think this would speed up the game and make it way more enjoyable. Well, I don't have an issue with the length of games, and I really don't get annoyed when I see teams stop to shoot free throws. The one thing that did jump out at me last night, and I've never understood this. I think I understand it, but I don't understand it. Giannis sucks at the free throw line. Now, how on God's green earth can a guy like Giannis, who's one of the most skilled freaks I've ever seen in my life, not make free throws? And I know what people are going to say. Well, Chad, his hands are so big. And you know what it means when they've got big hands? They have issues at the free throw line. Well, I used to buy into that idea maybe a bit because when guys like Shaq or Giannis are holding the basketball, it feels like a little orange in their hands or something. But then I watched the Sports Science with Sasha Vujacic. Do you remember Sasha Vujacic? He was the guy that wore that hair thingy that played for the Lakers. He was like a three-point shooter. I like Sasha. He was part of the back-to-back championship teams with the Lakers, Phil and Kobe, back in 2009 and 2010. Well, what they did on Sports Science, who was that guy that hosted that show? Was it John Brinkus? It might have been John Brinkus. A great show. But what they wanted to do was run this test on Sports Science to see why Shaquille O'Neal sucked at the free throw line. I think it was Shaq. And the whole idea is, well, he's taller. He's shooting at the rim. He's got big hands, so the ball feels different in his hands than it does for normal people. Well, what they did is they brought in Sasha Vujacic, who is a great free throw shooter. And then it was awesome because they dressed him up in all sorts of different gear to simulate the conditions of being a different size basketball player. So to simulate the hands, they put like these monstrous gloves on his hands, and he looked like a werewolf or something, and he had to shoot free throws with these oversized hands. And then they put him on stilts where he became, instead of a average size guard in the NBA, he became like Shaquille O'Neal. And then they put the gloves on him. So not only was he on stilts as a tall guy, but he had the oversized hands. So they did all these different things. And guess what? No matter what condition they put Sasha in, he stroked the free throws just like he did in his normal state. So what did that tell me? Well, what it tells me is that the guys that struggle at the free throw line, they don't work on their game enough. That would be my rough guess. They don't spend enough time practicing their free throws. We're talking about practice. Your free throws. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Because Sasha was money, no matter what they put on him. Like these giant hands, like these oversized, like weird hands that you would get at like a costume shop or something. And he was stroking it. It was amazing. So that's where I fall on that now. So I watched Giannis struggle at the free throw. I'm like, dude, you're too good for this. I never understood this. You know, Rick Barry, longtime great Hall of Famer who made his hay as a Golden State Warrior and as a broadcaster. Big fan of Rick Barry. He was one of the all-time greats. He was a phenomenal free throw shooter, and he would shoot granny style. And he mastered the art of the granny shot. And he asked to work with Will. He has to work with all these different dudes. Like, I can help you become a better free throw shooter. No one wants to go granny style. Brent Barry, his son, who used to be an Oregon State Beaver, it was pretty sweet because he would shoot granny style at the free throw line. I thought that was badass. I think it says a lot about a man. If you're willing to shoot granny style at the free throw line, that tells me you're more manly. Because you're like, you know what? I don't need to shoot overhand. I just want to put the ball in the hoop. It's very simple. Whatever it takes to get the ball in the hoop. And if you got to do it granny style to be better at it, do it. Listen to Rick Barry. He knows what he's talking about. Anyways, I don't understand Giannis. Come on, man. Be better, Giannis. What's up, Giannis? You're too good to be bricking free throws all night long. Guys like Giannis should not be stroking it at 50%. Shaq was terrible. And Shaq was funny because he's like, well, I make the ones in the clutch that I'm supposed to make. He was terrible. And imagine what if Shaq were like what if he were like an 80 or a 90% free throw shooter? He would average like 50 points a game for his career because he was getting hacked all the time. He was too big. You'd foul him. And I just think that's pretty weak. When a team fouls you because they know you can't make free throws, like Giannis, if he's going at the rim and I know I'm not going to get posterized, I'm fouling him. I'm not going to let him get an easy dunk. And by the way, isn't it fun to watch him jam the basketball? You know, sometimes I just go back to being a little kid. Like there were a couple times where he grabbed that ball and his hands are massive and he just went right back up and threw it down with like manly authority, like he's playing Nerf hoop in his bedroom. And I'm like, that's got to feel good. Does that ever get old to be that big and that powerful and just dunk the basketball like an absolute beast? My guess would be no. Never had that experience. Would love to have that experience. I can't imagine what it's like to have a body like Giannis. His deltoids are amazing. His legs are awesome. And his hands are massive. And he sucks at the free throw line. He's too good to be a bad free throw shooter. Now, just go back. Pull it up. It's on YouTube. Just pull up Sports Science Sasha Vujacic. I don't know if he wore his, I can't remember if he had the hair thingy on during the video that he shot for Sports Science or not, but it was great. Because then you're like, wait a second, if Sasha can make these free throws, because it's repetition, right? So basically what happened is that no matter what they put on Sasha, the shot was the same. Because he had practiced it so much that it's just muscle memory. Boom, 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 boom. It was pretty cool. I've tried walking on stilts before. I did that once in a talent show. I don't like standing on stilts. But Sasha did it very well. All right. I want to talk about this. A couple of different things from the NFL. First off, Mark Davis, owner of the Raiders. As I've told you before, I respect him. He's actually a man of the people. I lived in Emeryville when I was down in the Bay Area, and I lived right above this Bay Street, which was a shopping center. It was a cool place to live, but down below they had P.F. Chang's. Mark Davis was always at that P.F. Chang's getting his food. And he loved P.F. Chang's. And my buddy Steve hit me up the other day, and he goes, guess who I'm standing next to at In-N-Out? I said, I don't know. Who? Mark Davis. He likes to hang out and have food like the rest of us, you know. And I think that's pretty cool when an owner of an NFL team is hitting P.F. Chang's and In-N-Out. I like that. But I always respected him because he got bashed on by everyone. He never got the respect from anyone that had worked for his father. Greg Papa, who is one of the all-time great radio pros I've ever come across. I worked with him at the station down there in San Francisco. Greg Papa was let go as the play-by-play voice of the Raiders because of criticisms he made of Mark Davis when he was talking to and considering hiring Mike Shanahan. And Greg Papa went wild on radio talking about how you can't hire Mike Shanahan. Al would never go for this. Al would have never done this. And he upset Mark because Al was gone and Mark was the owner. but he got bashed on. Everyone kind of treated him like the black sheep. Well, he ended up, getting something done his dad never did, which was a brand new, beautiful crib in Las Vegas to open up revenue streams. It's pretty awesome. Great accomplishment for Mark. Well, he's made some mistakes with his hires. Hiring Josh McDaniels was a bad idea. Now, it's not his fault that he hired John Gruden, and then Gruden got his dome lopped off by the NFL. And then he had a chance to keep Rich Bisaccia, who got them in the postseason last time they were in the playoffs, and he chose to go with McDaniels. And McDaniels, like he was in Denver, a complete disaster as a head coach. Not a good people person, just a complete a-hole, and he got run out of town. And the players demanded he get fired. That never looks good on you as a head coach when the players go to the owner to say, yeah, we don't want to play for this guy anymore. And so he got rid of McDaniels, and then he caved to the pressure of his players to hire Antonio Pierce. So Mark is still trying to find his way as an owner to make better decisions. Well, one good thing he did was bring Tom Brady on board as a minority owner. And Tom Brady, of course, has input. Tom Brady, who Bill Belichick suggested they should name the Lombardi Trophy after because he's won 7 of them, he knows a thing or two about football. And he's been a part of a winning culture for an extended period of time with the Patriots and their dynasty. And Mark said today that Tom gives him something he's been lacking for quite some time.
Bringing in Tom Brady was bringing in somebody that was on the football side that I had been lacking having here at the organization. Back in, I guess it was 18 with John Gruden. He was somebody that I brought in and really expected to be that person on the football side that would bring stability to the organization. He had a 10-year contract and all that, and his head was chopped off. And we were put in a really bad position as an organization.
Yeah, you heard it from Mark. His head was chopped off. Now, Gruden, by the way, is one of the greatest social media warriors of all time. His social media content is fabulous. Big fan of John Gruden. So Tom Brady's in now, and you can already see the makings of what's going on there. They got rid of their GM. They got rid of their coach. So they have a new GM and a new coach, and they hire Pete Carroll. This is a good hire by Mark Davis and good advising by Tom Brady. The Raiders right now, imagine being on a ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean without a rudder. You have no idea which way you're going to go as the waves come crashing around. You're lost. And that's what the Raiders were for quite some time. They were lost, a rudderless ship. Well, bringing in Tom Brady, who is smart and knows football and is well-connected, and then bringing in Pete Carroll to run your program, who is smart, 30 years of head coaching experience, championship coach, both college and pro, and well-connected so he can build the right type of team around him is exactly what they needed. Now, Pete Carroll is a man of conviction. Pete Carroll is a man with a lot of experience, so no matter what comes across his desk, there's nothing he hasn't seen that he won't be prepared to deal with. Now, the big issue for Pete right now is the Raiders, they have no quarterback. None. Who's going to play QB for you? And until you get that figured out, you're going to continue to have major issues on offense. And my concern with any defensive coach in the NFL is simple. I know Pete Carroll knows how to coach defense. I know Pete Carroll knows how to lay a foundation and build a program, but he's a defensive guy. So more importantly, who are you bringing in to run your offense? And then what are you going to do about solving your quarterback issue? But the most important thing that Pete's going to bring to Mark Davis and the Raiders is direction. I mentioned earlier, my dad built that house for my mom in the countryside of Oklahoma. The first thing he did was lay the foundation. You got to pour the concrete, lay the foundation before you start to build. And that's what Pete Carroll's going to do. He knows how to lay a foundation. Many players who have played for him talk about how organized he is. You've got to be organized. And then you've got to know how to build a culture. And there have been other great coaches who have sought the advice of Pete Carroll on how to build culture. What type of team do you want to be? What type of players do you want to have? What type of coach do you want to be? What are your messages to your team? How do you build that culture to where you can have a solid locker room where you have guys competing and playing for each other? Well, Pete Carroll's going to bring that direction. And he'll lay the foundation, he'll build the culture, and he'll point the franchise in the right direction. Now, I don't know how long he's going to do this. Pete would probably prefer to coach until he dies. He's in his 70s. I'm not worried about his age because he's got a lot of energy for a 70-year-old. He loves coaching more than just about anybody, and he's going to give his best effort. And with his experience and his ability to connect with people around the league to build the right staff, I think he's going to be fine. This was a good hire by Mark Davis after a series of poor hires and bad decisions. Now you've got someone to get you back on track. And even though Pete Carroll has annoyed me at times because he was at USC and then with the Seahawks when they smashed the Broncos' face in Super Bowl 48, I respect him because he cares and he's organized and he knows how to build a culture and he knows how to provide direction and he's going to be on top of everything. I can tell you one thing. You'll notice this with the Raiders this year with Pete Carroll. They'll be a lot better in different situations on the football field. Better situationally, better in special teams, better on defense. You'll have a smarter decision-making on offense. They'll just be more buttoned up, which means they'll be more competitive. The problem is they're in the AFC West, which is a brutal division. You've got the Chiefs, you got the Chargers, and you got the Broncos. That means you have to go up against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh, and Sean Payton and Bo Nix. It doesn't get much more difficult than that. I mean, that's big time right there. But Pete Carroll's big time himself. He really is one of the all-time great coaches. And he's been around forever. And he's built programs from the ground up, like we saw at USC, like we saw in Seattle. And he knows how to create that culture. And I'm sure many of you have heard this, but one thing Pete has done when he took over the Seahawks, he went around in each room and took down all the pictures, all the signs, and put up a picture in each room saying, nothing's more important than the ball. Meaning, nothing more important than ball security, nothing more important than attacking the ball on defense. Turnovers are everything. So he knows how to communicate a very clear message. That is a very good hire by Mark Davis. Very good hire. Now, Brian Schottenheimer, maybe not as popular of a hire. He's a new head man in Dallas with the Cowboys, hired by Jerry Jones. And here's what he had to say.
Pete Carroll challenged me in a number of ways. He challenged me to continue to be authentic, to continue to dive into the relationships that matter, which is your coaches, your players, ownership. He challenged me offensively, to be honest with you. He challenged me with, hey, what do you think about this scheme? What do you think about that scheme? You know, and the McVay-Shanahan style was taking off, and in Seattle we were competing against, Sean and Kyle, and so he was pressing me. So I just really feel like things changed for me when I went with Pete. Learned a ton from my dad and all the coaches, Mike and Steve Spurrier, all those guys. But Pete Carroll had a huge impact on me, and it probably sharpened my edge and sharpened my view on what I want.
All right, there's Brian Schottenheimer. You see the impact that Pete Carroll had on him? That's what the Raiders brought in. That was a good decision. And I like Mark, so I want him to be successful. Excited to see what Pete can do, and I'm happy he got another opportunity because he wanted to coach. These guys, these coaches, they love it so much they'll never walk away. Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, Andy Reid. There's no way Andy Reid would be happy not coaching. And why would he walk away? He's got Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. He has no reason to walk away. Doesn't get any better than that. All right, Michael Holton going to join me for Holton on Hoops coming up at 5:20. If you want to have a conversation with me, 503-248-0620. I appreciate your time. And we'll get to your phone calls if you're on hold next. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, I want to give thanks to our friends at Coors Light for a great event yesterday at Dr. Jack's before the Trailblazers win over the Bucks, and also a big thanks to the Portland Trailblazers for their partnership and their willingness to work with us to do things like this. And Coors Light was the real power behind this, but we kicked off our 50-50 raffle to benefit ALS Northwest. And the 50-50 raffle is going to go from now through the next 6 weeks, and we'll announce the winning ticket number on March 12th. So what you're going to want to do is buy raffle tickets. 50% of the proceeds will benefit ALS Northwest. As I mentioned yesterday, and for those of you who don't know, my grandfather suffered from ALS and eventually passed away from that. And then Mike Lynch, one of our colleagues here in town in the radio biz, he was the studio host for the Trailblazers for a year, and then he was diagnosed with ALS, and so he had to stop working. And I wanted to do something to help, so we decided to partner up with the ALS Northwest to make a difference. So if you go to our website, and we've also posted the QR codes on, I've got it on my social. You can find me Chad Doing. Also on the social platforms for Rip City Radio. The QR code is out there. Very simple to go and purchase raffle tickets. But if you want to find it through the website, just go to RipCityRadio.com and hit the little 3-bar menu in the upper left-hand corner. And then your options will pop up. Go down to Features, hit that, and then click on Calendar. And you'll see it right there at the top of the screen. 50-50 raffle fundraiser. Click on that, and you'll find the link to buy your tickets. And then, boom, you'll be set. So please step up and buy some tickets. You can get 400 tickets for 100, 100 tickets for 50, 25 tickets for 25, or 5 tickets for 10. Even if you just spend $10 to get 5 tickets, every dollar is going to help. And it's really going to help out a very good foundation and the families who are stricken by this horrible disease. Not just the individuals, but the families who are strapped with having to care for them. And there's a lot that goes into that. So please go to RipCityRadio.com, click on the 3-bar menu in the upper left-hand corner, go down to Features, hit Calendar, and then hit the link to the 50-50 raffle fundraiser. All right, let's go out to the phones. I think this guy might have been the one who emailed me through the station website. Tim in Portland. Tim, what's up? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chad. How's it going?
Very well. What's up with you?
Good. Hey, I saw Adam Silver was looking at changing the time on the games possibly to speed up the games, and I got to be honest, I hate that suggestion, so I had a different suggestion.
Yes, you were talking about the free throws, right?
Yeah, I mean, nobody likes watching free throws. Why should a guy have to shoot 2 free throws, 1 point apiece? If we just shot the first one, it counted as 2, and the second one, we don't shoot if we make the first. If we miss, we shoot the second one for 1 point.
I think that's a simple suggestion, Tim, and I think it's actually a good idea. I don't have an issue with the time of the games because, they're going to come in at less than 3 hours, but your suggestion for the free throws is a good idea. It's not a bad idea at all. But again, I think the bigger issue is load management, the star players not playing on a nightly basis, maybe getting rid of the corner 3, bring back the hand check so defenses have an opportunity to actually defend. And then for the league, just stay out of the politics. It's pretty simple. Let's go to Michael in Portland. Michael, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
What the heck?
And Michael. Now, Michael, I don't want to interrupt your conversation right now, but you're on the radio, so fire away, Michael.
Oh, hey, I'm so sorry, my brother.
That's okay. What's on your mind?
Man. Hey, listen. Well, I appreciate you, waiting for me. I appreciate that very much. Let me tell you, first off, number one, you are doing an incredible job. Year after year, you get better and better. I've been listening to you ever since you took over, and I think you deserve a compliment. So, number one, that out of the way.
You.
Number two, listen to this. This is my idea. I was going to text it in, but I think it's better if it's said. And I emailed frickin' NBA about it. The All-Star game. Everybody wants to change everything and, all this. I really hated it when they did the whole, pick the player thing. I didn't like that because I really like that culture of East versus West.
Yeah.
I love that. And let me ask you what you think about this. What if the winner, whether East or West, the winner of the All-Star game, because you can't motivate these guys by money. They're making already millions and millions of dollars. They don't care. But what an incredible All-Star game it would be if the winner of the All-Star game gets home court advantage in the finals. Just let that simmer for a minute. Just think about that.
All right. I thought about it, and I'm not a fan of that idea. Major League Baseball tried that, my man. You remember that with the All-Star game where the winner of the All-Star game, that league got the home field advantage in the World Series? They don't need to do that with the NBA. Here's what the players need to do. The All-Star game used to be freaking awesome, and I grew up watching it. Here's what the players need to do. Just get back to competing. Just actually compete and work your ass off, okay? Go out there and grind and get after it. It drives me crazy that they don't defend, they don't engage, and they just let it be like a dunk contest and three-point shooting contest throughout the game with very little effort. East and West, I agree, is the best way to do it. That's the way it was growing up. You got your Eastern Conference All-Stars, you've got your Western Conference All-Stars, and you let those two teams compete. I don't know how the game got the way it is right now, but it's almost unwatchable. No. It is unwatchable. The All-Star weekend as a whole is unwatchable. It used to be great, but the problem is there's only so many different things you can do. I mean, it used to be the absolute spectacle throughout the season, every year. So when I was younger, again, the problem is I'm tainted because I had the best. I got to see Michael Jordan against Dominique Wilkins in the dunk contest, and I got to see Larry Bird shooting in the three-point contest. The problem is with me, anything that comes after that is going to pale in comparison. The only other year that was great was when D. Brown of the Boston Celtics came out with his Reebok pumps and was pumping up his shoes before he would dunk. That was cool. But after I saw Neek and Jordan and then Larry Bird, it hasn't been the same. But the problem with the All-Star game is those guys just don't compete. Just go out there and compete. Compete because you want to win. Compete because you want to represent your conference. Compete because it gives you a chance to go up against the other great players in the NBA and showcase what you can do. You got some thoughts on this, Brendan?
Yeah, it's just interesting, Chad, because, along your point, I agree. In my lifetime, I can remember the memorable All-Star games on, one hand. Even just recently, there's been All-Star games, skills challenge. They've tried so many different things. Probably in, the last 10 years, the one that really stands out, when Anthony Simons won the dunk contest, because I had, a reason to be into it. And we've seen Dame, we've seen CJ, others. It just, there's not, a draw. And like you said, perhaps it's competing, it's other thing, but the draw of hearing from you guys how it was Jordan Bird and just these awesome events. I don't know if we've ever had that.
Yeah, it's a really bad weekend right now. The other thing too is that they got these players doing all these different things. So by the time they get to the game for All-Star Weekend, they probably are aghast. But these players just got to, out of self-respect, just show up and compete. Just compete. It's okay to play defense and get up on a dude. What they would do before is the first 3 quarters back in the late 80s was more free and open. And then once fourth quarter came, it was crunch time, and they would start to play a real basketball game. Just compete. That's all we want. We just want to see the best against the best competing and trying to win a game. It's a very simple concept. All right, Scotty Bethune, he's chiming in. I'll get to that response. It's about me and the stilts and the talent show. I'll explain what the talent show was. Not one of my finer moments, but I'll explain. All right, Rip City Drive. Michael Holton's coming up at 5:20 for some Holton on Hoops.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, 5 o'clock chat here. We're going to have Michael Holton join the show at 5:20. A little Holton on hoops. Trailblazers, arguably their best performance last night, a victory over Dame and the Milwaukee Bucks. Denny Avdia, 30 points, 9 rebounds, double-double for DeAndre Ayton, 25 points, 7 assists for Anthony Simons. The Trailblazers out-rebounded the Bucks 52-36. They're back in action tomorrow night. The Orlando Magic in town, tip-off at 7. Chris Burkhardt will have game day at 5. I'll be live from Moda with Rip City Drive at 3 here on 620 Rip City Radio. From the NFL, Bill Belichick suggested on the Pat McAfee show the Lombardi Trophy should be renamed the Tom Brady Trophy because he's got 7 rings. Super Bowl 59 coming up Sunday, February 9th in New Orleans. Kickoff scheduled for 3:30. It'll be on Fox. KC is favored by 1.5, looking to become the first team to win 3 straight Super Bowls.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio.
All right, Michael Holton's going to be coming up in 20 minutes. Holton on hoops. We'll get his thoughts on what he saw last night. Denny Avdia just balling out of his mind right now. Love watching him play basketball. Tamani Kamara's a beast, and the Blazers have won 5 of their last 6. Orlando's in town tomorrow as they continue this 7-game homestand. And I'm getting a lot of people to chime in. I think there's a lot of people like me that just haven't paid too much attention to the All-Star games of late because of what it's become. You know, we just want to see more competition. That's all. I want to watch the stars. Give me a reason to sit down and watch. But when you go out there with the lackadaisical approach, communicating to me that you don't care about the game, then I'm going to lose interest real fast. But in the days when they would compete, especially in the fourth quarter, you'd have both sides with all the stars trying to win the game. It meant something. And you could feel it, you could sense it, you could see it, and you'd watch. You know, I think a lot of times people try to overcomplicate matters when really it's very simple. You want more people to watch NBA games? Make sure your stars are playing. Just bring back the hand check so defenses have a chance to actually defend. You don't have to overcomplicate matters. That's all. So, Mike Holton coming up in 20 minutes. If you want to jump on board, 503-248-0620. Scotty Bethune, I had mentioned being on stilts after what I was explaining with Sasha Vujacic being on Sports Science. And Scotty likes to bust my chops all the time, which I respect. He says, you walked on stilts for a talent show but lacked the talent of walking on stilts. Make it make sense. All right. This is when I lived in Colorado, and I think the West Jeff was the middle school that I went to. And there was a talent show. I can't remember the name. Was it called Bobcat Clowns? I think that's what it was. So we dressed up like clowns, and we had to do different things throughout the course of the show. It was like a school show. And the trick that I learned to do was, in my clown costume, was I would be on stilts, and I still remember the guy's name, Mike Rocklitz. That was his name. He was my good friend there in Colorado. He knew how to ride what's that bike called with the one wheel? Is that a unicycle? He knew how to ride the unicycle. And so I was on the stilts, and then he would ride under me, and then I would go off, and he'd carry me off on his shoulders. And we pulled it off. But it was uncomfortable being on the stilts. I learned how to do it. Once you learn how to hold the stilts, you can do it. It's not something I want to do now. I could do it then, but there's a lot of things I did then that I won't do now because when you become older, and you know this, Scotty, everything's a cost-benefit analysis. It's like, if I do this, what happens if it doesn't go well, if it goes sideways? Because I don't want to suffer injury. I got my golf game to worry about, and I'm 2 months away from golf season. So anything that could put me at risk of injury, I'm going to stay away from. I don't want any part of it. I got to make sure I'm in good working order come April. That's all. But yeah, stilts, Bobcat Clowns. It's amazing the stuff I used to do. I played clarinet, too, in the band. Not the coolest instrument when you're a dude back in the late 80s, early 90s. The clarinet. It's not the flute, but it's not far off. I got pretty good at that. I took piano lessons when I was younger. I don't know. You do a lot of things when you're younger for your mom to make her happy. And they wouldn't get me drums. My dad still regrets the fact he got me that speed bag. I was a huge Rocky fan. They got me a speed bag once. It's one of the greatest gifts of all time. And he put it up in the garage, and I just pounded that thing constantly. And as you might imagine, it made a lot of noise. That was a great gift, though. That's right up there near the top. The Rocky speed bag that I could work on in the garage after watching Rocky IV was amazing. Loved it. Loved the speed bag. But it made a lot of noise, and they didn't want me to have drums. That's what I've always wanted to play. I'm still toying with the idea. Have you ever wanted to take on a challenge of something you didn't think you could do but you want to do? I'm real close to taking drum lessons. I'm real close. And there are places where you can get lessons and have a place to practice. I think Guitar Center is one of those places. You get lessons, and you can rent out a space to where you can have a quiet room to practice in, because no one wants drums in their house because there's a lot of noise. I've got a friend whose son plays drums, and they built a little area and put up some soundproof walls like down in the, I don't know what you call it, like a basement or something like that. But they set up the drums where he could play, and it can make a lot of noise but not disturb the entire household. But drums, that would be the instrument I want to play. I've given up the idea of trying to sing because I know that's never happening because my voice is terrible, but playing the drums would be cool. And I respect musicians that play the drums. Singing and playing the drums is like next level. That's like Karen Carpenter stuff right there, Phil Collins. Love that. Don Henley. I love people that can play the drums and sing. It just blows me away. Every time I see it, I'm like, whoa, how can they do that? 503-248-0620. Let's go out to Ryland, who's in Beaverton. Ryland, appreciate the phone call. You're up on the Rip City Drive. What's on your mind?
I was just calling in to give the weekly Timbers preseason update.
Oh, yeah. What's going on with the Timbers, Ryland?
Just getting battered still. It's early doors, but still getting beat down in L.A., so nothing's changed. It's almost like we're in mid-season right now in July and August, but it's still only January.
Now, Ryland, I know you're a huge Timbers fan. How many road trips do you make per year, per season, to go watch them play in person?
I'd say out of the 20 to 21 away games they have, I'll be at 18, 19 of them.
That's awesome. What is the best road trip to make in the country for a Timbers game?
It's going to be kind of a hot take coming from a Ducks fan, but Columbus is not bad. Great college town. Great people who go to the college there. We won the Cup there in 2015, so it's always a good town to go party in.
What about Seattle? All right. Appreciate the phone call. I love it when you ask a question, you get no response. Just the hang up. Let's go out to Sean in Damascus. Sean, welcome to the Rip City Drive. What's up?
Hey, Chad. How you doing?
Very
I'm
well.
Sorry, long time no talk. It's
I
been
know.
Like, I don't know. I think it's been a year since I called you, and I feel horrible, but I listen all the time. And a little while ago, I just loved your stories you're telling about, when you were young back in Oklahoma and everything. That's just you got to do more of that. I just love listening to you talk about that.
Oh, the
That's
good
just
old
awesome.
stories. Yeah, man. I wish I respected those times more. I didn't realize how good I had it when I was younger. It was awesome.
I know what you mean. Being outside and just playing some ball or going out in the woods and just wandering around and just, you look back at it and you think, wow, I didn't really appreciate it as much as I should have. Those are just great times. And I had told you, I think you remember I gave you that DVD years ago, the Celtics and the Blazers.
I still
the
have
Bird
it.
Game, the
I still have it.
miraculous shot off of that. Isn't that something?
It's one of my
I'm
favorite.
freaking-
It's one of my.
yeah.
It's one of my favorite basketball games of all time. It was the last great game by Larry Bird in 1992.
Yeah.
Blazers at Celtics, and it went into double overtime. The Celtics won, and Larry Bird had 49 points and a triple double.
Yeah, it was that shot. I looked at that shot. I rewind it and look at it now. How in the world? He leaned forward and then jumped over the 3-point line and hit it. It was like, God, was that a 3-pointer? It was almost like a 2-pointer, but it was incredible.
I know.
It was just like something you never see, and I mean, just Larry the legend, and that got me to thinking too about, I know that you have said that you will watch old games on YouTube a lot, and I have a DVD. I think it was from the 73, 74, maybe somewhere back in there, the NBA All-Star game. And I could not believe how hard those guys were playing. They were playing harder than guys play nowadays in a regular season game, And, yeah, they had pride in their work and wanted to represent, like you said, their conference and their team. And you don't see that nowadays, unfortunately. But you were just talking about drums, too, and I know you're a giant music fan. Now, if you do get into drums, I had a guitar. I'd still love to give you a guitar, meet up with you sometime. But something that I found was really cool that won't bother people with drums is actually like the electronic drum sets. And you will have a module on there. You can change the settings of the snare drum and the toms, everything, the cymbals, and the levels of each one. And you can use headphones, too, if you like. And they actually sound amazing, and they're not hard to set up. And, they don't take a lot of space up, but that's something, you might want to think about that, too, just for starting out.
I'm curious, with the electronic drum set, how hard do you have to strike the drums to get the sound?
Just like normal.
Oh.
You can change the levels of the heads, because I had a kit that I had found at a pawn shop several years ago, and I wound up selling it because I just wasn't playing it, and I had set it up outside. It was awesome, and I set a little guitar amp out there with a CD player and started throwing on some, classic stuff. My dad was like, "Hey, how about some Van Morrison?" I'm like, "Heck yeah!" So I threw that on there, and was just jamming along with it, right cymbal. And I'm not a great drummer. I play guitar more, but I can keep a tempo and everything. And that was just a blast. I mean, you put in some Eagles, start playing along with it or something. I mean, you'd have a great time. You'd be hooked instantly.
See, and that's all I want. I'm not looking to perform drums on stage in front of people. What I want to do is I want to learn how to play so I can play along to the songs that I love. I think that would be a blast.
Oh, you would love it. I do that. I did that for a while with the drums, and like I said, I'm not even a drummer. I'm a guitar player, but I always wanted to play drums like you. When I was growing up, I was like, I had a pair of sticks, and I would just play on the bed and just try to get my own. I swear that gave me some dexterity on figuring out how to, like pretend you had your hi-hat and your snare drum, didn't have your bass drum, but at least it gave you some dexterity with your hands, and you have obviously a great ear for music. And I think you'd be a natural at that.
Oh gosh!
And
that's awesome.
I would just take that suggestion, because that way too, you're not annoying. Anybody can turn the level down. All you need is a guitar amp works. You plug a cord into the module, run that into a guitar amp, and you can control your level of the drum set on there. And you can actually go into the module and control each level of each cymbal or snare drum and bass drum, everything. They're just incredible. Those things are like super awesome.
Dude, that's so great.
And they're not expensive. $400 you could get something at Guitar Center.
All right, you're pumping me up, Sean. You're pumping me up. I appreciate it, buddy. Yeah, Sean's great. Probably my favorite regular season basketball game of all time, 1992. And this is back. Someone asked me today what I thought about NBC's announcers being. Now, wait a second. Who's it going to be? Oh, Reggie Miller and Mike Tirico. Now, I'm in the minority where I actually love Reggie Miller. I think he's a great analyst, great personality. I like Reggie. I'm making Travis Demers turn over in his grave right now, and he's not even dead. He can't stand Reggie. I love Reggie. Mike Tirico is good. I prefer him on football. But back in the day, man, it was Marv Albert and Mike Fratello, one of my favorite broadcast crews ever. And they were on the call for the Trailblazers at the Celtics, 1992. It was March of 92. I'll never forget the day because I got up in the morning. It was a morning game on a Sunday, and it was a nationally televised game on NBC. And I got to watch Larry Bird. He wasn't even supposed to play because he had a bad back, but he played 49 points, triple-double, last great game for Bird. And he hit a three at the end of regulation to put it into overtime right in the face of Clyde. That was one day where I was not pulling for the Trailblazers. I wanted Larry Bird to win because I love him. And then Kevin Gamble hit a baseline shot to put it in the second overtime, and then the rest is history. They got the win. It was a phenomenal game. And then later in that day, I went on my first date with one of my high school girlfriends, Tara. So it was a great day. That was a good day in the history of the Chad right there. But the drums, that's what I want to do. I just want to learn how to play so I can be by myself and play along to songs I love. I think that'd be great. All right, Michael Holton on Hoops is coming up next. If you're on hold, stay there. I'll get to your calls. Telephone number 503-248-0620. All right, time for some Holton on Hoops. Former Trailblazer and current radio and television analyst Michael Holton is joining the Rip City Drive once again. Our guy last night, Michael, Denny Avdia, balling out of his mind, 30 points, 9 rebounds. What'd you think about that performance against Milwaukee?
Come on, man. Denny, it was so good, it was so special. But Milwaukee came in with a game plan that they were going to rough him up and be physical with Denny. And we asked Denny about it in the walk-up interview after the game, and he said, he said, it made me smile. He said, it was a compliment. He basically said, I'm built for this. Denny Avdia is a special player, and I've been waiting for the league to kind of take notice that he's physical and that he has to move up your scouting report when you play the Blazers.
Oh, there's no question. And you know there are a lot of teams out there right now that would love to have Denny Avdia. You mentioned something on the broadcast tonight I want you to expand upon because I'm noticing it in games, but you were talking about how Denny does a great job of getting a defender out of position where he's not in legal guarding position. And then in that situation, he uses his physicality to get to a spot, usually right at the rim. So is that something that players can do? If you get a guy out of legal guarding position, do the refs allow you to be a little more physical in those spots?
Yes, and getting fouled is a skill. You know, I say, and I don't know if you really understand what that means. The ability to get fouled. And so Denny Avdia, most players on dribble penetration, particularly when they Euro step, they want to avoid the defense. Most offensive players in the NBA design moves to avoid contact. Denny Avdia designs moves to dislodge you. When you are not in legal guarding position, he takes advantage of it, and he delivers the blow. He's a player that can hurt you with his offense. Trust me, guys in the league, when the game is over, they're sitting on their stool like, man, that dude is a beast. And I feel like I've just been in a boxing match because he delivers the blow time in and time out.
Yeah, it's terrific. I really love watching him play. You know, the Blazers last night, you took note of this number, but they out-rebounded the Bucks 52-36. Rebounding's been an issue throughout the course of the year, and there'll be different points in time where Coach Billups has emphasized it. But what were they doing differently last night to have such great success with the glass?
So, Chad, where the focus goes, the energy flows. Chauncey has talked about rebounding with his team all season long, right? Sometimes, you know, the message landed. Other times, it either landed and they didn't get it done. Well, now it's landing and they're getting it done. Rebounding is one of the energy and effort parts of the game. Right? Your defense is not over until you wrap up a defensive rebound. But offensive rebounding is a whole different animal, if you will. Because to get an offensive rebound, your team has to manipulate the defense, get people out of position, but then you got to be willing to go through somebody to get that rebound. And so there's a different level of toughness or tact to offensive rebounding. I mean, DeAndre Ayton last night I thought really put on the clinic. He had, 6 offensive rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds, something like that. But yeah, he had 5 offensive rebounds. And DeAndre Ayton is, generally speaking, not a physical guy. He's not a guy. He's not Denny Avdia. He's not coming into the game like, I'm going to really lay this down on some people. But he has even bought into the fact that rebounding is critically important to this team's success.
You know, one thing I'm really excited about right now, Michael, the 5 young guys, Avdia, Tamani Kamara, who have been sensational, Donovan Clingan, who was terrific last night with his defense and his rebounding, and then you've got Scoot and Shaden, who are making progress. What are your thoughts on the job that Coach Billups and his staff have done at working with and developing the young players, those 5?
Well, I think that was an edict at the start of this season, that it was a season of development, and the organization wanted to see what they could do, really, with the whole team, but those guys you just talked about.
Yeah.
And Chauncey Billups and his staff, in my opinion, have turned the corner with this team. Doesn't mean they're going to keep winning at the rate they're winning, but when you see role identification, when you see guys consistently, Tamani Kamara consistently is a lockdown defender. Denny Avdia is consistent at what he does. DeAndre Ayton is consistent at what he does. Jabari Walker knows when he gets minutes what he has to do to stay on the floor. But let's look at Shaden Sharp and Scoot Henderson. I think they're the best exhibits for this, right? So these are guys at the beginning of the year I think most people thought would start, and they thought Scoot would play and start regardless of how well he played, that he's the future, and that's how it's going to be. Chauncey Billups has coached this team, and I see some of Larry Brown and what he's doing. Clear about roles and what you have to do to earn minutes, and about putting an address on your progress, and then assigning minutes accordingly.
That's terrific. Michael Holton was with us. Now, I think I heard you say, maybe mention to Travis, you're going to the All-Star game this year?
I will be at the All-Star game. That is correct.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, we were just talking about this on the show, and, the game has changed a lot over the years compared to what I remember from the late 80s and early 90s, where there's not the same level of competition that we used to see in that game. So I want to ask you, how do you think we got to this point in the All-Star game where there's less competition, and what would you like to see, or what can be done to maybe get back to that a little bit?
Great question. The game has changed from a standpoint of its entertainment value and the fraternization of players. Now guys have the same agent. They work out together. They're probably involved in business deals together. There's a fraternity feel to the league today. Everybody's buddies, right? And I'm not saying you shouldn't be friends, but they're peers, and it's a unique group. 400. There's only 400 guys, I guess, in the league. So that means those 400 guys don't have any other peers, right? There's not 400 other guys doing what they do. So I understand it. I get it. But, Chad, what has changed is the competitiveness. Because, back in the day, we could be friends, but when it came to game time, we didn't talk. We didn't go to dinner. And if we got matched up, I'm trying to give you the business. And so I think something has softened about the competition level and the consistency of competition. And I think the All-Star game highlights it, unfortunately.
Yeah, no doubt. We're talking with Michael Holton on Hoops here on the Rip City Drive. I think the All-Star game this year is down at Chase Center in San Francisco. I have not been to the new building. They were building it when I was still down there. How nice is that crib?
Oh, it's nice. It's nice. Right on the water. Yeah. When you pull up to Chase Center, you're like, man, this is going to be a nice night, right?
Yes, I like that.
I mean, new arenas. I look at, what is the Clippers' new arena called?
Yeah, Intuit Dome. You called a game down there at Intuit Dome. You said it was awesome.
Yeah, you go in these new buildings, man, and it's like, whoa. And so the Chase Center is one of those spots, because what happens in new buildings is they really lean into the fan experience differently. So what happens on the concourse, traditionally concourses are circular, and you go around, you find where you sit, and you go down. Well, these newer buildings, they're not cut in a straight circle, right? You can veer off the path and go here, and there's a club, and the whole dining experience is different, and the activations in the arena change the experience.
That's terrific. We're talking with Michael Holton here on the Rip City Drive. Yeah, Intuit Dome. I can't wait to get down there. That one looks absolutely spectacular. All right, the Trailblazers now 5-1 in their last 6 games. What's the next step for Chauncey Billups as they continue to push forward towards the second half of the season? I mean, what are you asking these young guys to do? Just continue to build on what they've done thus far?
Yeah, I think consistency is the goal. I think keeping these guys locked in to the task at hand and keeping them now, from getting distracted, because, losing can be a distraction, but so can winning, right? You can start pulling up thinking, we can beat these dudes. If we just do this, we'll be okay. You got to stay engaged and understand the assignment, because the assignment changes every night, right? The next game is going to be different than the last game in terms of the game plan and the game plan discipline, because opponents are different. So Chauncey and his staff's challenge now, and that's really not the best word to use, is to keep these guys locked into the thing that's right in front of them.
All right, I've got one more question for you. You mentioned this; it's a technical question, but I want you to explain it because I thought it was interesting. Last night during the game, the Blazers were having an issue when Giannis would put his shoulder down and drive at the rim, and you were talking about how in those situations when you got a guy of his size with his athleticism attacking the rim, that you need to have your defender matched up with 2 other guys to where I forgot how you worded it, like where you have less separation from your body so he doesn't have a lane to attack in. Explain how you would attack Giannis in those spots where he's trying to get downhill.
So the Blazers did it on some occasions. What I was trying to say, and it's hard on radio, you just don't have enough window of time to unpack situations. So you have to close the gaps. So between 2 defensive players is a gap.
Yes.
Right? Giannis sees that gap, and he usually sees it as he's already got a head of steam. He just runs to the gap, and he's so big and he's so strong that there's nothing you can do at that point. So you have to close the gap. You have to basically stand side by side like bowling ball pins. And put your hands up, and you got to discourage him from seeing a gap. And I call it early help, early recover. You got to show Giannis multiple defenders early when he's at the three-point line. Once he has a head of steam, there's no stopping him.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So if you close the gap and you've got that proper separation, if he lowers his shoulder and tries to attack, he'll probably get called for the offensive foul because you're in good guarding position, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're in legal guarding position. But what you really want to do, and I'm talking like it's easy, right? If it's easy, every team in the league would be doing it. You're trying to discourage him from penetrating. You want him to look and say, "Oh man," and make a pass and say, it's not available this time. You played a numbers game with guys like Giannis, the stars in the league. You're not going to stop them, but you want to keep them from being the deciding factor in victory or defeat.
Michael Holton, hold on, Hoops. All right, I'm going to cut you loose now because, one, you're a gamer for joining the show because I know you're a little bit under the weather, but you got to save yourself for tomorrow. We got another game coming up, buddy.
No question, man. So I'm getting game ready. I'm drinking tea. I'm going to bed early. I'm reading over my notes. I'm acting like a player. I told my wife, I got to go to bed early today, tomorrow, pregame meal. Okay.
No, it's good, man. I love it, dude. Thanks for coming on, and I'll see you tomorrow at the arena.
All right, man. Take care.
There you go. Michael Holton, Holton on Hoops. He's a little under the weather, so he wanted to join by phone, and I appreciate that. These studios, I've said it before, but there's like 1950s air in here. The air circulation's not great. A lot of germs in a radio studio. Like this microphone condom or whatever's over the top of this thing, it's pretty gross, actually. Thankfully, I'm the one closest to it most of the time. Let's go out to Newburgh. Let's go out to Dylan. Dylan, what's up, my man? Long time no chat. What's on your mind?
Hey, Chad. How's it going?
Good. Very well. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I wanted to circle back to what you were saying about Adam Silver's comments about fixing the stuff with the NBA's ratings.
Yes.
What I was thinking is, what if they shortened the season by 10 games? Have the season start in the middle of November, but have it end at the same time it usually does in the middle of April. That way, there's more incentive to have star players play more since the season's a little bit shorter.
Well, I think that's a great idea, but the one problem with that, Dylan, they'll never reduce the total number of games because of the money involved with the TV contracts.
Yeah, that is true. There's too much money in there to be made.
Yes,
I
but in theory, I think it's a
Adam,
great idea. If you shorten the season and you provide more rest between games for the players, maybe you would have less. You could see the benefit in less guys resting or having load management. That's quite possible.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I just think Adam Silver just needs to relax a little bit because I know the ratings are down. But, something they're going to come up with something, and hopefully it's a good idea, whatever they implement to try and fix load management, all the other stuff.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, the reduction of games, it would work, but they're never going to do that. I mean, the NFL is not reducing games; they're adding more games, and the NBA is not going to do it because you got to have the inventory to be able to pull in those massive dollars. The load management is a serious problem. Your stars aren't playing. You buy tickets to go to a game. You show up. It's like, oh wait, Giannis is out. No LeBron tonight. No Embiid. And in some stars, it's not because they're load managing, it's because they're fat, like Zion. I don't know. It's not good. And it wasn't like that when I was younger. Karl Malone, if you look up certain players, stars, and you look at their career that spanned over 10 years, there are some guys that played almost every single game. It's amazing. Let me pull that up real quick. Let's do a little exercise here. Who's the best player of all time? Michael Jordan? All right, probably is Michael Jordan. So let's go to Basketball Reference. Not only was Michael Jordan great, but he was on free TV all the time too, which is fabulous. All right, I'm looking at his games played throughout his entire career. Rookie season, 82 games played, 82 games started. Second season, he fractured his foot, so he played 18 games with 7 games started. Year 3, 82 and 82. Year 4, 82 and 82. Year 5, 81 and 81. Followed by 82 and 82, 82 and 82, 80, 78. And then you get to 94, 95 in the year where he came back after his brief retirement. He played and started in 17 games. And then the next 3 years, 82, 82, 82. And then in his final 2 years in Washington, played in 60, started 53. That's when he had, I think it was a knee issue. And he played in 82 games in his final year. There's no load management there. The only time he was out was for legitimate injury. I don't know, it's tough. It's a tough one because I understand for guys, they want to take care of their bodies. Now, this is a bigger conversation, actually. The weird part is, like, I wonder, do you think maybe guys play too much basketball now? Because it's year-round. They constantly play basketball. I remember back in the old days, like, when guys would hit the summertime, they would get away from basketball. They'd ride bikes or play golf or do different types of activities that wouldn't involve constant pounding on the joints, the feet, the knees, everything. Maybe they're playing too much basketball, and that's why you're seeing some of the injury concerns or whatever. But Karl Malone was the same way. He played almost every single game. And the load management's tough. Matthew Palumbo has chimed in. Chauncey Billups, in my opinion, has done a more than admirable job. The Trailblazers coach is instilling professionalism, work ethic that should mark his tenure. I'm certain Billups won't be renewed. He's a lame duck coach. That's true. He still has developed young talent. I think he and his staff have done a great job with the young talent. I truly believe that. And this is his last year. And then Joe Cronin will have a chance to hire his coach. Let's go out to the phones. Bradley wants to chime in. Bradley, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Chad, great to hear from you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'd love to get your feedback on this. You might have some statistics, but, if you take the average watcher of the NBA game and say to yourself, are the people that are watching this game used to players who have what I would call a little more grit? They might have grown up in the era where their parents are like, hey, what you start, you commit to, how you show yourself in a game. It's a pride thing. I think kind of some of this next generation that we're now watching play, 20, 21, 22, 24, whatever, there's a little bit more like it's an experience playing, like, oh, it's all about the experience. Win, don't care. Lose, don't care. How much money am I getting paid? And you can kind of see it on the court, if you ask me. And that kind of turns me off when I see people who are like, yeah, I don't really, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me that I got beat. It doesn't matter to me that we lost by 30, and that I just don't want to watch that. And then I'll say, secondly, I do think when they stopped hand checking and allowing defenders to kind of press in at the top of the key, and kind of make it a little bit more difficult to shoot. And it became like these guys are so skilled at the end of the day, right, that they can make baskets anywhere. And if it's uncontested, it becomes this like 125 to 120 game. And who really needs to watch it until the last 3 minutes because it's all irrelevant until then. So those are, to me, the two big things that keep me. And I think if you ask people, it would keep them from watching the product, and that's why the rating's down. So there's my comments.
No, I appreciate that. Good thoughts, Bradley. Thank you for the phone call. Yeah, it does matter to me. Like when I'm like last night, for example, Denny Avdia cared about what he was doing out there, and it makes me care. When I know guys care about what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish, then the game takes on a much greater significance, much like the AFC Championship game. Like when Josh Allen took over with over 3 minutes on the clock and 3 timeouts and the 2-minute warning and a chance to take out Patrick Mahomes in his own crib, it was great because I knew he wanted it more than anything. I don't know. Maybe it's the money. The money's so ridiculous now. Different than when I grew up, right? I mean, guys are making good money, but not this type of ridiculous cash. I don't know. But when I know players care and they're engaged and they're doing everything they can to help their team win, I love that kind of competition. It pumps me up. All right, come back, and one thing I want to mention in my conversation with Joe Cronin. Rip City Drive, Chad Doing here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Man, how good is this song? This right here is the quintessential 80s song. All right, I want to play this for you. My man Sean in Damascus brought it up. 49 points, triple-double for Larry Bird, March 15th, 1992. In Larry Bird's final season, the Trailblazers were on their way to another NBA Finals, but the Celtics actually finished with the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference that year. Earlier in the season, and this is before the turn of the year, so fall of 91, early in the season, the Celtics went to the Memorial Coliseum. That was one of the games where me and my boy, Jason, we snuck into the Coliseum to go watch Larry Bird. We would do that sometimes. Sometimes we would buy scalped tickets from the dudes on the street back in the day. Sometimes the tickets were gone or too much, so we would sneak in. And they had the double doors on the Coliseum, so you'd wait for the smokers. This is one benefit of smokers in society. They had the double doors on the Coliseum, so they'd have to exit the Coliseum to go out and work on their cancer stick. And we would just wait for smokers to pop out, and then we'd pop in. And then you'd pop in through one set of doors, and then you're in that little enclosed area. And then another smoker would pop out, and you'd pop in. You could sneak in. It was
all
great.
you had to do was follow the smokers, Chad.
That is correct.
Like, just for someone who his entire life is pretty much, I think all but 4 years, has had no ability to smoke inside, that's just a super, like, hard, other than Vegas, of course, super hard thing to comprehend. Like, that people, like, so you're saying that, like, back at Blazer games, you couldn't, like, smoke in the Coliseum, obviously, but you would, like, have a group of people who would go outside, smoke, and come back in, no problem?
You had to wait to get your smoke on.
Man,
I mean,
what a time.
I know this is hard to believe, but when I was in high school, we had a smoking section for students where you could
No
go outside and
kidding.
smoke on campus.
Wow. For high school, too? Okay.
All you needed was a sticker on your ASB card with a note from your parents saying it was okay for you to smoke. How wild is that? That's pretty crazy.
I've heard ASB stickers used for a lot of things, Chad. You know, free admission at athletic events, all this, ability to go off campus for lunch. That's a new one. ASB sticker to mean you can go outside and have a cig. Wait, that must have had some interesting moments back in high school.
Yeah, it's crazy. I rode on airplanes where they still allowed people to smoke in the back of the plane. It's crazy now when you talk about it, but that stuff actually happened. So I saw Larry Bird in Portland. The Blazers blew him out that night, but I did get to wave. Larry Bird waved at me, and I waved at him. We waited on the side of the Coliseum where the Celtics bus pulled up to pick up the players, and so I got to see Larry Bird basically face to face, and I was pretty happy about that. Sure, it was a big moment in his life too, but later in the year in March, they met at the old Boston Garden with the parquet floor, and it was a terrific game. Double overtime, Celtics get the win, but Larry Bird hit a miraculous one-handed three in the face of Clyde Drexler. Here's what it sounded like. Marv Albert and Mike Fratello on the call, an NBC nationally televised game back in the day.
7 2/10 seconds remaining in this fourth quarter, and Portland has called for a timeout. The crowd chanting Larry. Portland.
Where'd it go?
A game that time taken by the
crapola.
Celtics on purpose. So they can
Yeah, whatever. I pulled up the wrong feed. I just ruined that for everyone. Anyways, it was a miraculous three. I was glad I watched that game. I did want to mention this. In my passing conversation with Joe Cronin last night, I had been a part of a couple of Paul Allen's State of the Union addresses. The one thing that was cool is that back in the day, once a year, Paul would meet with some members of the press at Moda Center to talk about the Seahawks, to talk about the Trailblazers, and to share his thoughts on a variety of different topics. And it was pretty awesome. And so I always respected Paul and loved the fact that he cared so much about the Blazers and spent a lot of money to keep the Blazers in town. I was a big fan of Paul. And I knew he cared. And he was willing to spend ridiculous amounts of dollars to do whatever it took to win. So his heart was in the right place, and I respected that. Like any owner, it's like, He's not going to get, bat 1,000. But if I know he cares and he's willing to spend and do whatever it takes because he wants to win, then I respect it. And I was happy that he got at least a championship with the Seattle Seahawks. Well, I asked Cronin, I was like, what's the biggest misconception of, Jody? Because we haven't heard from her publicly, like we did from Paul. And so when people ask me or try to tell me what Jody thinks or what she believes or whatever, I just don't know because I haven't heard from her. And I don't know how anyone could speak with authority on, what she believes or thinks or feels about the Blazers when she's never shared that unless they know her personally. And Joe told me that, Jody's great. She's never said no to him. And she's very engaged and on top of anything and everything. So it's up to Joe to, if he has an idea about a G League team or this or that, to, paint the picture as to why it's necessary. And when he does that, she green lights it and gives a yes. So, he told me that she's very engaged and is willing to jump in to a Zoom or meet at any time to discuss a variety of different things. And so she definitely makes his job easier, which is nice to hear. All right, that's going to do it for us. Props to Michael Holton for, stepping up under the weather today. Big thanks to Brendan Slaughter. Tomorrow I'll be live at Moda Center getting ready for the Magic. Rip City Drive at 3, and then Chris Burkhart will have game day at 5. So you guys have a good night. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on 620 Rip City Radio.